When the Coliseum was built in Rome, it changed the world forever. Nearly 2,000 years ago, the first superstructure dedicated to watching people get slaughtered in the name of athletics was erected, and to this day, both things still exist. And as humans have evolved, so have our stadiums. But what happens when these cathedrals dedicated to sport are no longer needed? Nothing lasts forever, and today we're going to look at the world's creepiest abandoned stadiums and tell you why they were built and ultimately left to rot. And that's coming up right after this. This video is sponsored by Wix. If you're a business owner, a content creator, or simply have something to say, you need to get the word out. You need a website. And as I found myself in the same boat, I realized I needed Wix. The variety of websites that can be made by Wix are amazing. I can be pretty particular about how I want things to look, but Wix has you covered. They have a template for what you're looking for. They integrated my YouTube content right into my homepage, and I was off. Even better, they take care of all the scary things with a website. Easy hosting, customized domains and mailboxes, email marketing, and more. It's all in one place. Setting up and designing a site was so easy. I had mine done in minutes and was ready to publish. No matter what your skill level, a novice, a business owner, even a former designer like myself, you can achieve the results you want with a professional website from Wix. Follow my link below after this video and get started on your website today. Though there have been many abandoned stadiums throughout history, there is certain criteria I used for this vid. Parts or elements of the building must still be standing, and it had to be built in the last 100 years. So those of you who came for the Pontiac Silverdome or Circus Maximus, sorry, didn't make the cut. It can be currently used for other functions, though the primary reason for this list was that the arena was once used for sports and it's not anymore, and likely never will be again. Disrepair and decay is a bonus. Let's get into it. Once the site of what was to be Major League Baseball, as the Kansas City, now Oakland A's agreed to move the team to Louisville in 1964. Those plans changed when the MLB owners voted against it. From its inception, various tenants occupied the structure, one constant being minor league baseball, with the Louisville Colonels from 1957 to 1962 and the Redbirds from 1982 to 1999. However, the primary resident was the Louisville Cardinal football team, which occupied the building from 1957 to 1997. So why was it left to sit in ruin as it does today? Its obsolete and odd grandstands weren't suited for big-time football, so the Cardinals moved to their new on-campus digs with the same name in 1998. The stadium was in use for baseball until 2000, but the Redbirds moved to Louisville Slugger Field, sealing the aging structure's fate. Used sparingly for state fair activities, the ruin is slated for demolition in early 2019. Nearby Freedom Hall, which shares the parking lot, has also sat abandoned since 2010. There you go, Louisville. Start something, witness abandonment, see the failure, and finally tear it down. Opened in 1941, the Uline Arena, also known as the Washington Coliseum, was the site of the first ever Beatles concert in the United States in 1964. The arena was originally constructed to house local ice dealer Miguel Uline's hockey team, the Washington Lions. Almost immediately after construction, the building was repurposed as military housing as the Pearl Harbor attack thrusted the U.S. into war. After World War II, the building was restored for athletic use, and in 1949, the Washington Capitals made it their home and became a charter member of the NBA. The team folded a year later. Dwight Eisenhower held both of his inaugural balls in the building. A riot at a 1967 Temptation show caused concerts to be banned from the place. The ABA came and left in 1969. In 1971, it was used as a temporary jail. So why was it abandoned? It was ultimately made obsolete in 1973 when the Capitol Center was built in Landover, Maryland. Officially closed in 1986, the arena went into severe disrepair, and attempts to demolish the defunct arena were thwarted by the DC Preservation League. The building has served as an extra creepy parking garage. In 2015, retailer REI announced it would convert the arena into a flagship store, which opened in 2016. And just like the Capitals, years of amazing failure followed by redemption. Do you know what's a bad idea? Hosting an Olympics. Do you know what's a worse idea than that? Hosting an Olympics when you can't afford it and have no real plan on what to do after you plunge your country into massive debt. The 2004 Games, though filled with great moments, were an economic disaster for Greece. And there are no two bigger black eyes than the Hellinikon Olympic baseball and softball stadiums, which have sat abandoned for nearly 14 years. The state-of-the-art venues were built on a defunct airport strip and were only active for 3 weeks, in which the USA won gold in softball and Cuba won in baseball. Immediately after the Olympics, both complexes were abandoned. Imagine that! Nobody in Greece plays either sport. The larger baseball complex was converted into a soccer arena, and tenants Ethnikos Piraeus FC began play there in 2007. In 2013, they asked that the arena be expanded, and the answer was no. Failure seems to follow the venue, as Ethnikos was relegated and ended up moving into an even smaller, older stadium with a capacity of 2,500. The site now serves as a refugee camp, but overall the sprawling Olympic complex is a rotting failure. But hey, everyone knows who Jenny Finch is now. A city named after the ancient capital of Egypt, its odd fascination with ruins reached an ironic peak when the Memphis pyramid was built in 1991. Originally conceived as a 3-building venue to mimic that of the Great Pyramids of Giza, the Memphis Pyramid was to be the centerpiece of a sports and retail complex replete with a theme park. With the Grizzlies successfully lured away from Vancouver in 1995, it looked as if the building plan would work, as the Memphis Tigers basketball team played there as well. Failure seemed to follow the pyramid just like a cursed mummy, as on opening night the building flooded due to inadequate drainage. So why was it left to crumble? Realizing the pyramid was not NBA standard and simply odd, the FedEx Forum opened in 2004 and sealed the pyramid's fate like King Tut's hidden tomb. From 2005 to 2015, the arena had no tenant and it sat as a ruin just like its counterpart in Egypt. It was recently converted into a giant Bass Pro Shops. I am not making that up. One of the greatest football movies ever was primarily shot at Fouts Field in Denton, Texas, as iconic lines such as this were uttered on its hallowed ground.
Illegal contact! Number 51! Senkutsu elbow thrust! To the up back!
Active for nearly 60 years as the home field for the University of North Texas Mean Green, this stadium once held a maximum capacity of 30,500 spectators. However, as the arena began to age, it was ultimately replaced in 2010 by Apogee Stadium. Fouts Field was partially demolished, then converted for use by the school's track and field team. In 2015, it was completely abandoned and the field was scheduled for demolition. Update. Fouts Field was actually completely demolished a couple days ago with a few swift kicks to its foundation. Although officially named Mario Filho, the Maracana, as it's known, has seen huge crowds, amazing events, and been the site of historic football failure for Brazil and even death for its attendees. Opened in 1950 to host the FIFA World Cup, Brazil was shocked in the final, in which they lost 2-1 to Uruguay. A defeat so devastating it may have been the motivation for why Brazil eagerly wished to erase the failure of the past. And in 2014, they again got the chance to host the World Cup, choosing the Maracana as the venue for the finals. The Brazilians never got that chance. In 1992, a section of the stadium collapsed, killing 3 people. Throughout its history, it has gone through various states of high points and neglect. After the 2016 Olympic closing ceremonies, the stadium was abandoned. In 2017, photos of the brown pitch and ripped up seats began to surface. Eventually, the power was cut off to the building. A legal battle was at the center of the stadium's lack of use. However, as of 2017, a new management company is taking over. During the time of the dispute, tours of the facility were canceled due to vandalism and violent robberies in the area. Even the statue of Mario Filho was stolen. Along with other World Cup and Olympic venues in Brazil which are either underutilized or abandoned, the Maracana looks to someday be restored to its glory of the past. Both an engineering marvel and an engineering disaster, the Astrodome changed sports forever in many ways. The world's first multi-purpose stadium and enclosed roof, originally named the Harris County Dome Stadium, it opened in 1965 and was nicknamed the eighth wonder of the world. With a glass ceiling, engineers sought to use a natural grass playing surface. What they did not anticipate was the intense glare off the roof that made tracking fly balls difficult. A section was painted white, which killed most of the grass. Where light went through, the grass would hold moisture, then release it, causing it to literally rain inside the dome. In 1966, the carpet, aka AstroTurf, came, and since it was in such short supply, it only covered the infield. It wasn't until mid-season that the painted dirt in the outfield was covered in the toe-ruining synthetic grass. And thus, the era of shitty baseball and ruined knees was ushered in. So why was this wondrous disaster abandoned? The Oilers left in 1996, and then the Stros moved to Minute Maid Park in 2000, making the maligned dome obsolete. NRG Stadium was built next to it, further driving the nail in the coffin. Though active for events and serving as a shelter for hurricane victims in 2005, the building was deemed unsafe in 2008 and partially demolished in 2013. Several proposals have been put forth for the structure. One involved making it an indoor park, but the only one being worked on is a conversion to an underground parking garage. The shock of how relentless the earth is in reclaiming its property can be seen in what remains of Empire Stadium on Malta, situated in the Mediterranean Sea. Opened in 1922, Empire Stadium grew to a max capacity of 30,000 spectators and was the site of many international football matches. However, in the mid-1960s and early 70s, disputes between the Maltese Football Association and the government led to the opening of a new stadium in 1980 in which the MFA wasn't even invited. Eventually, the two sides made up and Empire paid the price. The last football game would take place there in 1981, and the exit solution was simply to let it rot into the freaking ground. The area is barely recognizable as a once prominent stadium and looks more like a giant petri dish now. Stadion Lužánkami was built in 1953 and enjoyed many years as the home of FC Zbrojovka Brno. A bustling and well-attended stadium in the 1970s, it enjoyed 40-plus years of football and concerts. So why was it closed in 2001? After FIFA and the Czech Football Federation deemed it not up to standard, the stadium was abandoned. The trees and vegetation began to grow and homeless people began living on the grounds. A push was made to have one final game there by former captain Peter Svankara, and the stadium did just that in 2015. The field area is used for youth training and there have been talks of renovation. I apologize if I butchered those pronunciations. Remember, I did my best. A venue that had very little overhead as the playing surface was simply the ocean in front of it. Miami Marine Stadium was a staple of seaside entertainment for nearly 30 years. Opened in 1963 and serving as a place to take in water sports and concert events, the all-concrete structure featured panoramic views of the city of Miami. At its first event, speedboat racer James Tapp was killed in an accident. So why is it a rotting mess? Lack of events and Hurricane Andrew rendered the building unsafe in 1992. And then it became a hotspot for graffiti artists and does attract the occasional visitor who wants to take advantage of its views. There have been recent talks of restoration, but those have all fallen through as Miami has its own active stadium disaster to deal with. Though many parts of this massive stadium are still technically active, the sheer size of this once prominent structure landed on this list. Great Strahov Stadium once had a capacity of 250,000 with 56,000 seated. The most popular events here were called Spartakiads, massive synchronized gymnastic events. The last Spartakiad was held in the stadium in 1985, and in 1990, after the fall of the Iron Curtain, the Rolling Stones played the venue, as well as other big-name acts up until 2002. So why was it abandoned? Beginning in the early 90s, various parts of the stadium were neglected and grown over, and the structure is used now only as a training facility for Sparta Prague. Its sheer size and old construction make upkeep difficult. Plans have been proposed to turn the area into a commercial zone with hotels and restaurants. I wonder if Bass Pro Shops is interested. And finally, hands down, the creepiest abandoned stadium in the world. Many of the stadiums on this list became abandoned because of a bad economic decision, a replacement structure being built, or general neglect. Avanhard Stadium in Pripyat has a legitimate excuse. Built in 1978 to house their local soccer team, Avanhard had a capacity of 10,000 and was a well-attended and well-loved venue. However, on April 26, 1986, everything changed.
There has been a nuclear accident in the Soviet Union, and the Soviets have admitted that it happened.
The first word that something was seriously wrong came from this power plant in eastern Sweden, where workers coming on the job registered abnormally high levels of radiation on their bodies.
An official announcement from the Council of Ministers. There has been an accident at the Chernobyl atomic power station.
The Chernobyl disaster was the worst nuclear power accident in the history of mankind, as an error during a safety test caused a full-on explosion and reactor meltdown, contaminating huge swaths of land in Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. Avanhard Stadium was a mere 2 miles away from the reactor core. The area was immediately evacuated and a 1,000-mile exclusion zone was created. Everything was left as it was that day, and as the radiation has subsided, more and more visitors have gone into the contaminated land to explore. The only competition in Avanhard is between its crumbling structure and the Earth, which wants its property back. The area is uninhabitable and will be for the next 150 to 320 years. It's easily the most frightening venue in all of sports. It and MetLife Stadium. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please follow my link below and get started on your Wix website today. Also, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and check out my other less creepy stadium critiques. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to the end of this video.